On one hand, they say there's no genders. On one hand, there's 58 genders. There's always going to be a wage gap. There's 58 genders. How can there be a wage gap when gender is a social construct?
It is male.
You're a white male. And where the hell is Mike? And I speak to your manager.
Get the rocks.
Yeah.
Abdul?
Yeah, get the rocks.
Get the rocks.
Probably one of his.
How do you explain a 9.8% gap between what women earn and what men earn?
Well, there are many different factors like job and age and experience and particularly time taken out of the workplace that haven't been taken into account. So you might as well say that brown-eyed people are more than blue-eyed people and call it discrimination based on this data in the same way that we're saying gender is being discriminated against. Neither are legitimate because you just haven't actually broken it down to see what the real comparisons are.
Except we have got, right, well, there is a statistic which is 80%, 88% of jobs with salaries of £150,000 or more are held by men.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you saying that's nothing to do with discrimination?
It might have something to do with discrimination in certain circumstances. Unfortunately, from this data, we can't claim that because...
Now, if feminism was solely based on logic, it wouldn't even exist anymore. You want to change the gender pay gap? Ladies, maybe change your major from feminist dance therapy to electrical engineering.
The female candidate had lost and they were all very annoyed about it. But they think it's about genuine, they haven't quite got equality yet.
We've got absolute equality. We've got advantages which the men haven't got. I actually think it's gone very unfairly the other way. My view of equality is just that, is that men and women compete on equal terms, not with one side having the playing field tilted towards them.
That is my view. On the issue of equal pay, yes, there is legislation that means that men and women should be paid the same amount. But the fact of the matter is, women are still not paid the same amount for doing the work that someone sitting next to them might be doing.
That is a complete nonsense. If you go into it, I mean, the fact is that if you do exactly the same job as a man, you must, in law, have exactly the same pay.
Except it's hard to get transparency about what a man doing the same job as you is getting.
Susanna?
You can, yes, but I'm just challenging that particular point.
I'd like to finish this sentence, and I state again that the law says you can't have two rates of pay for one job. The reason that it looks statistically as if women do worse is because women tend far more to work part-time because they have child responsibilities. They tend to take time off for maternity leave, and so they fall back in the promotion stakes. Those are the sorts of reasons, not because there's some discrimination against somebody who's prepared to come in and work every day just the same as me. Stand up for yourself, will you?
Well, don't worry, you don't have to worry about me. I've been trying to stand up myself all week, and I've been killed for it, but...
Basically saying there is a gender gap because these reasons. Piers Morgan is saying there is a gender gap and you're disgusting. I'm saying there is no gender gap. It's been debunked several times. Now, I'm probably not the right person to talk about this, but the gender gap is something that a lot of people, you probably heard about, that women earn less than men.
Today, the typical woman who works full-time earns 79 cents for every dollar that a typical man makes.
This is definitely not a statement made so that people can pat themselves on the back. Oh, it's so hard being a woman. And it's not a statement that men make to further themselves in different areas, say politics. What they did with the gender gap is that they took all men and all women and did a median on it and said, oh, okay, women earn this amount less than men in general. What they don't take into account is, well, pretty much anything at all, like women working less hours, women choosing less high-paying jobs, and so on and so forth. Now, if you take these factors into account, basically the gender gap comes out to pretty much nothing, because men and women are paid generally equal, because it is governed by the law. You can't pay someone less money because of their gender. It's illegal. It's been illegal for 45 years. If women were paid less than men, then why doesn't all companies just hire women? You would have to pay them less for the same job. But this statement lives on because politicians wants to further themselves. People want to feel better by saying it. oh, women! People want to pat themselves on the back. But really, you're doing more harm than good by making statements like this. Now, basically what the man was saying, there's more than one pay gap. If you're shorter, you get paid less. If you are less intelligent, you're more likely to get paid less. If you are fat, you are likely to get paid less. All these different things, all these different privileges, they all come down to less pay. But Piers so desperately wants to show that he's a good man that he's irrational. He won't even listen to what he said. He said several times, I don't think women should get paid less.
I never said that women should earn less.
He said what 3 times, but you completely ignored because Piers so desperately wants to show I'm standing up for women. It's so easy. It's so easy to just be like, oh, you're disrespecting women. You're a disgusting sexist pig. You're in the parliament. Get this man out of the parliament. Let's dismiss everything else this man believes in because he's sexist and disgusting.
If PewDiePie can debunk the wage gap, then feminists already have lost this argument.
I feel a lot of passion about the lack of parity, the lack of equality of women across all levels. I think the myth is that we have equality, that we have parity. Absolutely. I think we still have a long way to go. I think there's been a great strides in terms of women in society, women in organisations. There's been focus on developing women in more senior roles at leadership levels. But we're still a long way to go.
But Belinda says it's because of the choices that women make.
But I think we do have choices, and I think feminism isn't against choice. I think the idea of feminism is that we have the opportunity to choose between what we want to do, whether we want to work, whether we don't want to work, whether we have careers, whether we don't. It's all about choice.
There are a couple of things there. I don't think feminism is about choice. It's actually put women in a situation where now we're much more compelled to work than we ever were before. We're forced to go out and leave our children in childcare at much earlier ages. And let's look at the facts. If we look at the facts, who lives 5 years longer? Women do. Who constitute the majority of homeless? About 95% of the homeless and rough sleepers. Men do. In all these different areas, who constitutes about 79% of the suicide rate? Who makes up who gets sentenced for longer times? Men do. It's hard. Who gets less funding on healthcare? Men do. It's hard to find one area where women are disadvantaged in relation to men.
Meanwhile.
De réalité se paie cher.
Have you guys ever noticed that feminism is only a Western woman thing?
You can have somebody in the White House with views that are so degrading to women. If somebody like that, and with his views in the White House today, I don't know what hope we have for the rest of women across the world. I think that the danger that we have here is that these men have got platforms with which they can disseminate these views to a much wider audience. I mean, last night we had Piers Morgan who took to his Twitter account and he branded feminists, rabid feminists, women that were protesting.
But the protests are really inconsistent because I've not seen any protest against the Saudi government, even though people know that for years women have not been allowed to drive or do anything.
We have so many amazing feminists, so many amazing women who are protesting, and these are obviously women who recognise the fact that women in Saudi and other countries as well, not just in Islamic countries, who are being discriminated against, who don't have the same access to education, to healthcare, to
that's part of the struggle, obviously.
Yeah, it's part of a wider struggle.
Belinda, hi.
I think the important thing is that we're talking about feminism in this country, we're talking about women in this country. We should not be using the terrible situations of women and men in developing countries to boost the feminist campaign. Speaking personally as a woman, I don't feel I have ever experienced disadvantage.
Are you a feminist?
Virtue. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Perfect. No.
Boom.
I'm strongly opposed to feminism, and this idea are things stacked against women. When I look around me, the evidence is pointing to actually things are stacked against men. I mean, if you look at the education system, all the way through, boys are disadvantaged in relation to girls, resulting in 33% more women ending up at university, resulting in the fact that up to the age of 35, women are actually earning slightly more than men. There are all kinds of ways. When I look around,
but women have to do so much better and achieve much more to achieve something to get to the same level.
That is a complete myth. That is a complete myth. The reason why women are not at the same level in politics is because of choices we make. We prioritise our families and our private lives more than men do. We are not talking about inequality.
Okay.
When this man asked this lady, was she a feminist?
Are you a feminist?
And she said,
absolutely not.
I literally cannot describe a more perfect specimen. Give this woman a promotion right now.
What's going on, people? Uncle Hotep back at it again. How you doing, YouTube? I want to talk about the gender gap. People insisting there's a gender gap. Never mind the fact that it'll say men and women just do different jobs, and that's the main reason for it. They work longer. Men work longer hours. Everybody knows that. But my main point is, on one hand, they said there's a gender gap. On another hand, they'll say there's 58 genders. I'm not even making this shit up. How can there be a wage gap? What is the wage gap between, if there's 58 genders, what's the wage gap between all 58 genders? How can there be a wage gap? There's always going to be a wage gap. There's 58 genders. How can there be a wage gap when gender is a social construct? But you see what I'm saying? It's like, on one hand they say there's no genders, on one hand there's 58 genders. Like, how can people believe there's a wage gap? There's no wage gap, man. Like, if there was a wage gap in a capitalist system, they would hire the cheaper labor. They had no problem hiring all these illegal immigrants so they can pay them lower wages, they can make bigger profit. So you mean to tell me the same people that paid all these illegal immigrants cheaper wages would hire the higher wage man over the lower wage woman, allegedly? It's like circles and circles of hypocrisy and weirdo thinking. These people say there's no gender. There's people say there's 58 genders. There's people say Caitlyn / Bruce Jenner's a woman. Like, what's this? Did like when Bruce Jenner became a woman, did he start making less money? You see what I'm saying? I mean, I don't get it. I seen him on the TV more. Yo, man. 58 genders, no genders. I don't know what to say, man. It's some fuckery afoot, man. Anyway, this is Uncle Hotep, man. I just had to make a quick video on it. Y'all might see my tweet about 58 genders, and people are just retweeting it. So I was like, man, I might as well make a video about these 58 genders and the wage gap, man. Because this is like, is it an infinite wage difference? Oh man, America.
there are only 2 genders, and the rest are unidentified Pokemons.
Who's that Pokemon?
Now, this isn't sexism, it's just common sense. Now, gentlemen, on that note, that's it for today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
When it comes to 1-year-old Dante, Pierre, you are the father.